It takes a lot for a development studio to make an immediate impact, but Tequila Works definitely did that with Deadlight back in 2012 on Xbox Live Arcade. So this, as I said, was an original exclusive to that platform. It did come out to PC eventually, but now we're going to get the Director's Cut, and PlayStation owners for the first time will get to try out Deadlight, which is quite exciting. This is a very linear type of game in the sense that you have a 4 to 5 hour campaign. There are a lot of optional extras to pick up. There's a lot of hidden secrets to find. There's handheld game machines which you can play in game. And also now new to this Director's Cut is a survival mode where you basically use interactive defenses to block zombies. You can access new areas. You can fight back using different weapons like machine guns, Molotov cocktails and sniper rifles. And you've got online leaderboards which you compete against your friends and the rest of the world. It's kind of very similar to stuff you would find in, say, the Call of Duty zombie mode. So that would be very relatable in that sense. You've also got the Nightmare difficulty mode, which was originally just exclusive to PC. That's now in the Director's Cut. Everything is now at 1080p, it's 60 frames per second. The controls have been updated, the animations have been enhanced. There's developer diary so you can see how the game was made. And also you can see concept art in the digital art book, which can be accessed in the game. So why is Deadlight getting a re-release? Well, obviously this is now just out. I was just watching this video. It's coming out to $15.99. And you can actually get it as a retail copy as well, which is quite a surprise because, as I said, this was originally just a digital release. So why? I mean, obviously this is a 4 to 5 hour campaign. Nothing really much has changed in that sense. You've still got the same animations and the cutscenes as you've been used to before. Yes, you've got a lot of hidden collectibles like diary entries, ID cards, memorabilia, and also you've got the same sort of amount of puzzles to solve. For instance, like activating power to use a switch or avoid traps, which can then be used against your foes. But it's a bit of a surprise. I mean, I guess that this might have been slightly inspired by the fact that Shadow Complex is getting a re-release. It's a fairly decent game. It plays really well. It's enjoyable. The campaign is really fresh. But it did come out to mixed and negative reviews originally. So it is a bit of a surprise to see it. But it's also refreshing because it does look absolutely stupendous. It's a beautiful game. I think they've done a great job with upgrading the visuals. It looks the part on the current gen systems. It still plays really well. The story is actually as interesting as perhaps anything else I've seen this gen. Even based on last gen as well. It's just a very good game, and I think the survival mode does add a nice edge to it as well, which kind of improves things and definitely makes it more of a worthwhile package perhaps than before, because it gives you a bit more bang for your buck. But again, it's a bit of a surprise it's coming out in retail, but it's still a great digital release, and it's something that I would recommend if you're looking for a good meaty narrative story driven game to get your teeth into. Again, you've got different types of weapons, so you can use a revolver, a shotgun, a fireman's axe. There's a slingshot you can use on enemies. You can actually taunt them to come towards you and then either set them up for traps or kind of jump over their head. The idea of this with the shadows is that you try to avoid them as much as possible, and the game has been set up so that you really make a job of actually trying to avoid them rather than direct combat. What you're actually seeing on the screen now is one of the 80s handheld games that you can pick up in the game. This is a bit of a Guitar Hero focused type game, but there are other different ones as well you can collect. And these are just little fun little things you can pick up. They're very reminiscent of the sort of ones you found before pre-Game Boy, like kind of there was Back to Future ones, there was Turtle ones way back when. Sort of very similar to Nintendo's Game & Watch style. And they're just silly fun to play, but there's nothing much to them. There's like high scores you can beat, and you get trophies for playing them and walking through them. But really the survival mode is the real additional meat and bones to this game, as is the additional nightmare mode. And actually when you play the nightmare mode, you can get an additional ending to the game as well, which again was exclusive to the PC version, so please bear that in mind while you play it. There is sort of multiple ways to go through the game, and there's multiple incentives to do that. The story itself is basically you're in Seattle, and it's taking place in 1986. It's 145 days since patient zero. Society's been nearly decimated by the outbreak of a virus that reanimates the dead. It turns them into survivors that have been known as shadows. And Randall Wayne, the guy you're playing, is a park ranger from Canada, and he's been separated from his wife and daughter, and he's come to Seattle because of the reports of the last remaining safe point in the Pacific Northwest. And he's convinced that his family is at this safe point, and so he's joined up with a group of guys who are, you sort of, as you do in typical zombie mode fashion, you have band up together and you try to survive. And so he's joined up with these guys, and he's hoping that he's going to find his family on the way. But as he gets split away from his group, then he has to try and find his way through all types of different crazy things that are happening in Seattle. And, you know, he's meeting up with different characters along the way, and he's having to learn all these different strategies, learning more about the shadows as he's going along. And he's sort of learning more about himself too. He actually sees a lot of flashbacks and a lot of sequences that kind of remind him of his past, and as a result you learn more about the character as well. So there's some great narrative techniques used by Tequila Works in here, and I think that's something that really made the game stand out when it first came out. You're seeing here now one of the actual cutscenes that's used in the games. They're fully animated, kind of comic book style, so this makes it a lot more interesting as well. So you've got a lot of reason to keep watching and playing, and it looks great. I mean, the style has really been enhanced, as I said, using the director's cut, and it really moves very seamlessly when you're going through the game in you know, the actual modern day systems. So it's a real good fit, I think, for current gen, and I don't feel that this is a wasted opportunity in any stretch of the imagination. I know that obviously we're a bit starved for some releases, and we're waiting for that lull between the end of the year and now. And this is a nice filler point. Again, if you've already played it, I think there's enough reason to jump back in as well with the survival mode, and also just to see how pretty the game looks and how well it is still held up even now. Which is a real surprise to me, because I did play the original arcade game and I loved it, and I'm saying this now and I feel actually more inclined to play it than before, because I realise how well things do stand up and how good the game actually was when it first came out. So it's a nice reminder of that, I think. And it also, when it first came out in the Xbox Live Arcade, it was in that sort of boom period where there was so many great games coming through, where Microsoft really owned the independent market. And so it's perhaps it got a little bit lost in the shuffle then, whereas now it's really got its chance to kind of shine and stand out, and it really does, because it is not real much competition to go against it, other than perhaps Shadow Complex, which again is a very similar style of game, and perhaps you might be deciding between the two which one to go for. I'd recommend both personally, and you can see in my other video as well what I thought of Shadow Complex. But, you know, if you really had to go for either, I think Deadlight really does make a strong case for itself with this director's cut, because, as I said, the survival mode is great, the additional pop-ups are great, there's a lot to collect in the game as well, there's a lot to find out. The story really kind of opens up as well, even with the collectibles, which I like, is you find out more and more as you pick up more and more. So all in all, I would say Deadlight Director's Cut is well worth a look. It's really held up well, it looks better than ever, it plays still great, it may